30.
30.
30. 30 years.
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 30 years.
30.
30 years.
One voice.
One voice.
One voice. One voice.
I was shocked.
That's the reaction of 14-year-old Jessica Howe after she saw what was allegedly going on at this Butler County farm.
He would bring people out to the house, and they would all be working nude.
October 26, 2004. Agents from the FBI, along with the staff from the U.S. Department of Justice and the Disability Rights Center, raided the property of Arlen and Linda Kaufman.
That's why federal agents busted 68-year-old Arlen Kaufman and his 61-year-old wife, Linda.
What they found was shocking beyond belief.
They were supposed to be caring for the mentally ill, but instead, prosecutors say they made naked slaves out of the patients.
During the trial, a lot of facts came out that were horrific and really make you shudder.
Just to realize that someone actually had so little regard for human dignity that they would be willing to put somebody through that.
Abuse that they were subjected to was just unimaginable.
For more than a decade, the Kaufmans, under the guise of therapy, had engaged in the systematic physical, psychological, and sexual abuse of individuals with mental illness who resided in the Kaufmans' group homes in Newton, Kansas. The Kaufmans had proven themselves to be experts at evading law enforcement and state regulators as they engaged in their brutal exploitation of residents with mental illness.
A critical part of their scheme was that they absolutely restricted access of their residents to the outside world. They discouraged family visits, and many of these residents didn't really have families who wanted to visit. They're all older adults, some near retirement age. They instructed the residents that if anyone shows up at the door not to let them in. On a couple of occasions when Harvey County law enforcement, Newton police, had tried to visit the residents, they'd immediately notify the Kaufmans, who quickly came over and barred them from entering. They were very aggressive in dealing with law enforcement who was making an inquiry.
Over a 20-year period, at least 10 complaints, including 4 from former residents or family members, were made to state agencies about the Kaufman house. After 10 state agency investigations that spanned 2 decades, little had changed and the horrors continued. The Disability Rights Center stepped in, exercised its powers under federal law, and conducted an on-site investigation of the Kaufman house. One resident then asked an attorney of DRC for help, saying, "I don't want to be naked anymore." The very next day, DRC attorneys provided civil, legal representation to get the first resident out of the Kaufman house and to safety. The first witness was now free from the Kaufman's influence.
As a survivor of Kaufman House, would like people to understand that if it hadn't been for the protective advocacy federal statutes that allow them to walk in and check out how the victim was doing, Kaufman House would still be in business today. DRC, they were able to go knock on the door of Kaufman House, the door opened, and they were able to get the first victim of Kaufman House out after 20 years of no one getting us out.
DRC had the ability to go in and do some things under their authority that we weren't able to do or weren't able to do as quickly as they could get it done. I mean, they were able to step in and work on behalf of those individuals, the victims in that case, a lot quicker than we could have under the state system, because they had other authority, other regulations and rules that they could operate under that were going to allow them to do things and do them a lot quicker.
What others couldn't get done in over 20 years, within 5 months of DRC's investigation and action, the Kaufmans were arrested.
One of the things that was unique about the Kaufman approach was that we knew when we went in to execute search warrants and to make arrests for both Arlen and Linda Kaufman that we're going to face a situation of having to have a plan in place to deal with the residents of the house. As I indicated, there were a number of adults who lived there who had various forms of mental illness or mental disabilities, who either because they couldn't take care of themselves or had been conditioned to rely on others, weren't going to be in a situation to immediately provide for their own living and housing arrangements.
We have advocates, we have attorneys, we have administrators who all serve people with disabilities and serve their interests. The best thing for the victims was to ensure that they got justice, and so we worked with the victims to get them justice through the criminal prosecution and the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Through the assistance both first for referral through the Kansas Attorney General's Office and the assistance of the Disability Rights Center, we managed to get court orders freeing the residents from those houses. Then we filed criminal charges, both civil rights and healthcare fraud and abuse charges, against Arlen and Linda Kaufman.
Thanks to the U.S. Attorney's Office, Arlen Kaufman was found guilty on 31 federal counts and Linda Kaufman guilty on 30 federal counts, including involuntary servitude, forced labor, conspiracy, healthcare fraud, mail fraud, and Medicare fraud. Helping to bring the Kaufmans to justice and helping the residents free themselves from the Kaufmans' reign of abuse will forever be a pinnacle achievement in the history of the Disability Rights Center.
Thank God that the DRC was around to kind of fight for those people, to help get them out of their environments. And now, thanks to DRC, those people are now living better lives.
That's why we're there. A big reason why we're there is that we can take those most heinous acts and hopefully try to get justice. Because of limited resources, we can't take every case. And there's a lot of cases that we'd love to take if we had more dollars to be able to get justice for the individual who was wronged. But with those cases where atrocities have happened and abuse and neglect has occurred, we then have the resources, the staff time, and the really legal authority to do something about it and to get justice, to shine light on places that before were incredibly dark.